unfortunately, there are no loans for retirement. And while we all know this intellectually, sometimes we're tempted to behave in a way that's inconsistent with this. And in today's video, I'm going to talk about what some of the common mistakes are that I see people make that are inconsistent with the fact that there are no loans for retirement. And be sure to stay to the end, because I'm going to share some information that is the most powerful to help you from making this mistake. So let's go for a walk and let's talk about this. So, you know, I say there's no loans for retirement. And the reason I say that is, you know, there are student loans, there are house loans, there's car loans, there's loans for just about anything that's going to cost a lot of money in your life, with the exception of retirement. And where I see people making decisions that they may regret later is helping out their adult children, right? In American society, I think there's a lot of pressure on families to try to pay as much of college for our kids as we can. Unfortunately, in our society, the cost of education has just skyrocketed, and it's super hard for a young person to graduate debt-free now. And so what a lot of families have done is, you know, tried to make up the difference, but unfortunately it's a big number for a lot of us. And you know, there are student loans, so you know, if you have the money because you know, you've done the math, you've done the plan, you know you have more than enough to retire, you're doing well, and if it's something that's important to you, great, do it. But I see a lot of families really struggling and sacrificing enormously in order. We've got some kids back here getting their picture taken, so I'll walk away to keep it quiet. So let's see, there's four college tuitions waiting to be paid there someday. So, you know, that's what I see is with the student loans and helping out your kids, which I think is great. Full disclosure, you know, I paid for most of my kids' college education. I was glad I was able to do that. I paid my own way through school, by the way. And so, you know, I experienced that firsthand myself, how difficult it can be to do that. But the world was different then. You know, I could work a summer job, and in a summer job and working, you know, maybe 10 hours a week in college, you could pay for college back then. That's not how I did it. I was on a military scholarship. But it's almost impossible for young people to do that. So families are tempted, and I think society has put pressure on us. So if you can afford to do it and you want to do it, great. Okay, so now we've got the kids through college. What's the next milestone? Well, you know, oftentimes, you know, college is a warm and cozy place. It certainly was for me. I really enjoyed college. And for my oldest daughter is actually graduating college this spring, and she pointed out to me that, you know, some of her friends are going on for a master's just because they don't know what they want to do when college is over, and that's an expensive crutch to avoid making a decision and to avoid transitioning into the work world. And you know, if mom and dad are paying for that and their finances are not strong enough to pay for that comfortably, that's a big sacrifice for mom and dad. So, you know, what do you do? How do you protect yourself from this? How do you get the information to say, do I have enough money to do this? Or do I need to be careful? Do I need to, you know, help out my child as much as I can, but not put my retirement at risk? Because, you know, the last thing you want to do is have your financial security be in question as you get older, because, you know, ultimately your kids are going to have to look at that and try to help out and do what they can. So I think one of the greatest gifts we can give our kids is for us to be financially independent and to not overstretch, to not spend more for our kids than we can comfortably afford to do. So the first step here, I'll share you, unfortunately another train's coming. We'll keep going, but you'll be able to see it coming in the background. But you know, the first thing to do is put together a financial plan and just say, you know, how much money can we afford to help the kids with? And, you know, maybe if we get fortunate and the market does really well and we have additional money, we'll be able to help our kids with that. But know where you're at and know what your situation is. Do you have enough money to be able to comfortably help your kids? Or is it really a stretch, and maybe the best thing you can do is say, you know, mom and dad can pay half, or we can pay a fourth, or, you know, unfortunately, this is what my parents told me, you know, unfortunately, you know, you're kind of on your own for college. And I'm glad I knew that, so I could start working towards a scholarship to help me out with that. So I think that's one of the things we can do. The other thing is to not overstretch once your kids are done with college. I mentioned grad school. Another place, you know, sometimes for a graduation present, kids get a car. If that's super comfortable for you to do and you want to do that, great. But I don't think that should be an expectation. And you know, Dave Ramsey talks, I don't like to, you know, mention other advisors on this show because those are their thoughts, but I think Dave does a really good job on this. I've heard people ask him about paying for college, and you know, Dave points out there is no moral obligation to pay for your kids' college. You know, people like, there's plenty of people that have paid their own way through college. So if you're feeling like society is putting pressure on you to do this, to pay for undergrad, you know, I hope you can get over that. You know, I don't know how you do other than to just say, you know, it's your kids are going to figure out a way, right? They've got to have that internal motivation, and if they're motivated, they're going to figure out a way. You got them to 18, you got them well educated through high school. You kept them safe, you kept them fed, you kept the roof over their head, you gave them lots of love. And they're gonna be just fine. But remember, there are no loans. So we talked about the education, we talked about the car. You know, the other place that I see parents overextend is houses are getting expensive, and it's hard for a young person to get a down payment for the house. So I've seen mom and dad help out with that. And there's different ways to do this, and you could do this with college as well, right? If you want to help your kids, if it's like, you know, they're going to be 40 years. I don't know how young people are going to do it to save for a car now. So if you do want to help out your kids, maybe that's, you know, a handshake agreement between you guys that this is a loan. And mom and dad need you to pay that back. And then maybe between you and your spouse, you look and you say, you know, if our investments do better than planned, maybe we forgive that loan a little bit over time. So that's what I'd suggest there is, you know, make things a loan, and between mom and dad, if you know, are thinking, well, maybe we would consider making it a forgivable loan if things work out well, I think that's fine. But to put your own financial security at risk, I just really caution you on that. And so the powerful tip, the most important tip, is really two things. One, know that you don't have a moral obligation to do these things. It's great if you want to and you're able to, but if it's putting your own financial security at risk, I want you to know that you don't have to, right? Your kids are going to be fine. And then the other thing is, have a plan. You know, how do you know if you have enough, if you don't have a plan? And you know, doing a financial plan does not have to be crazy expensive. None of what I'm sharing here today with you is financial advice, and it can't be. It cannot be, because I don't know your situation. But if you hire a financial advisor, and I always recommend or suggest a fee-only financial advisor, they're going to have a fiduciary obligation to put your best interest before them. Any financial advisor, a fiduciary is like a doctor or a lawyer, has to put your interest first. People think that most financial advisors are fiduciaries, but unfortunately, a lot of them are not fiduciaries 100% of the time. So anybody you're talking to, ask them that question: are you a fiduciary to me 100% of the time? And get the answer in writing. But you know, have a plan done so you know whether you have enough money or whether it's tight. And if it's tight, you know, maybe you can be a little more generous later with the kids. But if the money's tight, you've got to make sure that you and your spouse are financially independent. I'll mention a book that might be helpful. It's called Die with Zero by Bill Perkins. If you haven't read that, that might be helpful for you as well as you're thinking about your finances and how you're spending money, and you know, how you're thinking about supporting your kids. So I hope today's video was helpful. If it was, as the kids say, thumbs for likes, subs for love. Give me a like. It really does help the channel. It helps me out a lot. It gives me the resources to do videos like this and to bring this information to all of you. I love doing this. I hope you enjoy the videos. And and leave me a comment. I love reading the comments as well. So again, I'll close here with this beautiful sunset. I guess I've been out here a while with this beautiful sunset. And again, I hope you found this video helpful. If there's topics you'd like me to talk about in future videos, if there's suggestions you have for me with my videos, leave me a comment. I do read the comments. I try to reply to as many as I can. And until next time, I'm Azul, encouraging you to take full advantage of the youth of your senior years. Remember, you're only young once. Let's use our time wisely.